can put on my website.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah.
Hi everybody, welcome to Connect to Success with me, Ashley Owens, on 12:30 on Thursdays during your lunch break, where we talk to power networkers in the greater Philadelphia and South Jersey area. And today I really have the privilege and the pleasure to interview Mr. Paul Visokey.
Visokey, yes.
Ooh, I almost screwed it up, but close. But thank you so much again for being here. So, Paul, it's
Yes.
your first time on RVN.
Yes.
It's your first time here, ever.
Not exactly.
Not exactly? Why?
I was here for a CEO chat with.
That's right.
Yeah. So
okay.
My second time.
How was that?
It was great.
It was good.
It was
And it's Al, right?
Yeah, Al Sini, yeah.
Wow, what did you guys talk about?
We talked about the market and what I do and the issues that face business owners that we work with and trying to help them. The main thing I do, I'll just jump into it.
Yo, go jump into it, yes. So who you are, what you do, and what makes you awesome.
Our focus, our goal when I started the company in 2010 is to help business owners access the value they've created in their privately owned business.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Over years, they build a company, they grow it, they add employees, they have customers. And at some point, they'd like to get that money that they've created, that wealth, out of their company. We help them find a buyer for that purpose.
Interesting. So your resources must be extensive if you guys are going in and helping companies sell their companies. Is that correct?
Yes, but it's a personal service. We call ourselves intermediaries. We are in the middle between buyer and seller, and we connect the dots. This program is a perfect title for us because we connect people. Oh. We connect, and literally, our process in finding a buyer can take months and in a few cases years, because it's a very specific search to get the right fit. And one of our taglines is, we find the right buyer at the best price.
So Stony Hill Advisors, we find the right buyer at the best price.
Yes.
Brilliant. So tell me more about how. So when a company calls you, right, just as, again, to dumb it down a little bit for my trash brain, what has been the number one question, or at least a common question, that when a business calls you, what do they need? What problem are they having?
Well, most of the time they're calling us because they're reaching a point where they realize it's time to move on and look toward retirement. Majority of our clients are baby boomer generation retiring. We do work with some business owners that are selling a business in order to invest and do something different. They're not yet at that retirement point, but more than most are retiring. Right. So they're looking for, how do we help them? And the part of it is, it's a trusted advisor role, like an accountant or an attorney, because they do it once in their life. Yeah. If they've been doing this, they built their business from the early 70s or mid 80s, whatever.
Right, because you can get married again, you can get divorced again. These are things you can.
But they only sell their business once usually.
Their business once, yeah.
So they have to trust the person, and they have to trust the person is going to find the right buyer, because they also have in their mind duty to their customers and their employees. Right. Whoever takes over the ownership of the business is the right person for that role.
So do you provide therapy for them to do that, go through? Because I feel like any kind of time you're doing that big of an exchange, there's going to be a lot of turmoil, a lot of craziness that goes on. So how do you, maybe I'm getting to the juicy part, how do you handle those kinds of situations where people are dealing with an abundance of money and they're getting rid of something? There's usually some stuff that goes on. Have you ever been able to deflect that kind of, I'm saying, like, has there ever been an issue where you've had people who are very nervous to sell? Maybe one partner was ready to sell and the other partner wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, what do you do?
We do counsel there, and we have people that we're connected with who will bring into the conversation to help.
Because you're an intermediator.
Yes.
Okay, and do you bring in a mediator for those conversations?
Well, the organizational psychologists.
Ooh, okay, I didn't know that.
A big issue in what we do is a business owner has been doing the same thing, running a business for, I'll call it 30 years. Right. And when they sell and they leave the business behind, and there's a transition, maybe a year or 2 or 3, but at some point they're gone from the business, and then what do they do? And many are not mentally prepared, emotionally prepared for that next part of their life. And having an organizational psychologist help them understand what they need to be doing in their final years, and it's usually a couple years in advance, not just the last months, to figure out what they want to do. A lot of it is working with charities
Okay.
Having a secondary a life purpose, traveling in some cases,
Really?
and then I recently wrote a blog article, and I titled it, Selling Your Business is a Family Event, because if your whole family, spouse and children, et cetera, aren't on board, it's hard for you to make that decision, to walk away, because they're going like, what are you going to do now? Why are we doing this? So you need to work on the family and process as well as getting your business ready.
It seems like you're very emotionally invested into what you do. And I'm saying that as a compliment, because it seems like you've provided resources that's not just transactional. It's very much a building up of trust, of know, like, and trust factor. So how would you think, with your competitors, how are you different than people that are working in mergers and acquisitions?
That's an excellent question, because it's one that we've addressed over time. And what we've tried to build is a business that is holistic in its approach to working with business owners. For instance, a part of our service offering is exit planning, around building a strategy to build the business value, so that at the point when you're ready to make that move to find a buyer, it's at maximum value. And there's a number of things that have to be done to, in effect, de-risk the business for the next owner. First and foremost, we encourage business owners, if they're reaching that later stages, is to train their replacement. Make the business separate from them so that they don't have to be there. It runs without them. Then they can make them transition, because the next owner doesn't have to worry about, what do I do when you leave?
Now, do you have a niche that you like working with, a specific kind of industry that you enjoy, that you've had a lot of experience in? It could be preferable or just in general. I know you can work with anybody.
We have one industry that one of my brokers has focused on of late, and it's the staffing industry at large. IT staffing, healthcare staffing, and there's a lot of activity there in kind of combining and rolling up companies together, because there's leverage in having a bigger organization and reduced overheads. But beyond that, we work primarily in businesses that are at least $5 million in revenue, because that has more value in the market, and there's more to work with. If we're doing the exit planning, there's more that we can build around the business to make it more valuable than just a solopreneur kind of single operator business.
Would you work with a solopreneur to kind of say they've got this business plan, they've got the trajectory, they have everything, and then being able to pitch it to the investors that would be interested in taking it on?
We generally do not, because they're very hard to sell. There's not, because the business is that person. And again, just like I said, what we encourage is the business owner wants to make the business independent of them. So in a solopreneur, the business is the person.
Yeah, but what if they have a product or a service that they provide?
Well, in that case, yes. If there's something that's sellable.
Yes, correct. It would be scalable, sellable, things like that. And that's a little bit easier to kind of pitch it. Do they have to have a certain amount of revenue to be able to sell it that would look presentable to investors in that capacity?
Well, the bigger the business, the more valuable it is.
Of course.
That goes back to risk. A bigger business doesn't go away quickly. A smaller business could have a serious setback and go out of business in short order. So for our efforts and the cost, what we charge, we look for bigger businesses who can afford our services.
Of course.
And then the other part of what we offer is valuation service. And that's important for business owners to know what the business is worth, so they can plan their future.
Interesting.
When we work with financial advisors, we help them understand that the business that their client owns, which is probably the majority of the net worth, if they don't know what it's worth, they can't plan the retirement program. They don't know how much to put aside for stocks and bonds and so on, if you don't know what you're going to get out of your business when you finally sell it.
Interesting. Okay. So where do you see most businesses struggle the most while they're prepping to sell their companies?
That's interesting, because most don't do the necessary prep. That's the struggle. The reason I said earlier, approach this holistically and do the exit planning is because we found that there was typically a gap between what the business owner wants or needs for retirement and what the business is currently worth.
Interesting.
And what we try to get them to do is let us help them build the value and reduce that gap. Too many don't. Yeah. It's frustrating to us at times.
This is worth this amount because I have the numbers in my head. It's like that.
Yeah, and they think they just put it on the market and people just buy it.
Oh my gosh.
And they don't get it ready.
So
And the best analogy, if I may,
Yeah, of course.
because it's sometimes people got the picture. If you have a house you've been living in for 30 years and your kitchen's 30 years old and your carpeting's worn out and your roof needs to be replaced, are you going to get the best price in the market?
Nope.
No. But business owners think they can get away with that, and it's crazy.
That's nuts. So where do you think, do you have an example of a client that you worked with, you don't have to use their name, that you saw that you had originally thought they were priced at this amount and then ended up selling at more?
I don't know that I've ever had one that sold for more.
So meaning like you guys were wildly accurate in your assessments.
Yeah. And you know, there's always bargaining. There's elements to the transaction that aren't just price. So that gets into what is it worth. Is there an employment agreement, which sometimes includes non-compete components, so that you get compensated for that as a business owner.
Right.
There's sometimes process of employees, key employees getting bonuses that go into keeping them on board so they don't leave at the same time. So there's many elements to the transaction that is more than just the price itself.
So when you say putting the company on the market, what does that mean?
In effect, similar to a house, once it's on the market, we are engaged
But
as
when you go to a house, you have to go to a real estate agent. So when you
and
put it
that's
on
why
the
they come to
market-
us.
Got
We're
it,
their
got
agent.
it. Got it.
And we make the business ready. One of the process, because unlike a house where you can look at it and see what it's worth, or you can measure the square footage or the number of bedrooms or those kind of parameters, businesses are all different. So we have to define the business, and we do that through creating marketing documents we call offering memorandums, and sometimes called SIMs, but they describe the business for the potential interested buyer. And in that description, they get all the aspects, the financial aspects, the employees, the customers, the market, whatever assets they have. And so it's a pretty complete description, allowing someone to get a measure of the business before they even start the negotiation.
It seems like the due diligence to this is absolutely extraordinary.
It
you
is.
guys are looking at every single aspect, every single piece of it. So when we come back, we're going to talk more with Paul about how he networks and actually really networks for those businesses that are looking to sell, as well as who you have in your resources, because you're a broker, right?
Yes.
Essentially, so you got a lot of people. Super fancy.
We have a connect network. Yeah.
I'm trying to make him making you laugh makes me. To Connect to Success with me, Ashley Owens, on RVN TV. We have Paul from Stony Hill Advisors today. We're talking about buying and selling businesses, mergers and acquisitions, and the know, like, and trust factor. So what I really want to know more about, we were just talking during the break. So things that are a little scary for a lot of business owners, or even general to talk about now in this climate that we're in, the social climate that we're in, it's sex, politics, and money, right? Taxes usually are out there too, and school loans. I'm still bitter about those. But when you are building relationships with people, because it's such a long game with them, right? It's a long relationship.
Yes.
They have to trust you with like the inner workings of essentially what was their baby 30
Yes,
years ago.
absolutely.
And their child, right? So how are you networking in a capacity that allows you to build those relationships that are going to be long-term rather than just quickly transactional with just one sale? So typically people that we have on the show, it's usually a few months is usually the term of agreement. This could go out, I would assume, a year, correct? A year to 2
Easily.
years. Easily, yeah. So how are you building those relationships with those people, especially if they're coming from, a referral? How are you taking care of those people?
Okay. The first aspect is the referral itself. We do a lot of work networking to get to know the trusted advisor community that business owners rely on.
Got it. Okay.
And it's, their accountants, their attorneys, their financial advisors. Oftentimes, they're business consultants, people who are coaching or giving them advice on how to run their business more than looking toward the end. They're looking in the current term.
Right, but that's a good referral because
It's a good referral because they get to know the business owner.
Right.
And because it's such an important trusted role that we take on,
Right.
and we become in that trusted community, we depend on referrals.
Right.
And business owners don't necessarily go to the internet and do a Google search and say, oh, I found the first one on the list, that's the one I'll choose.
Right, if they're baby boomers, they're not Googling things.
Not typically.
No, because the handshake was the way to make deals, and that's still extremely honorable, and that's how I grew up, seeing my dad do that stuff. So.
And other than, as I mentioned, our exit planning, what we do is not entirely different than anyone else in our world.
In your field, yeah.
So what it depends on is the relationship we develop with that business owner, that they can trust that we will work for them in their best interest, put out the effort that is needed to get the job done, as I said, the right buyer at the best price. And that becomes the element of why they would choose us after we find them. But if you back up, the exit planning element allows us to build that relationship in a non-threatening way. They're not at that end point where they have to or intending to sell in the near future. They're getting the business ready over a couple of years. And if they engage us in that conversation, in that coaching process, by the time they're ready, they know us and we know them.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to try anyone else because we understand their business, we understand what they're looking for.
And again, those trusted advisor groups that you're referring to, where do you find that has been the most successful on building those relationships? Because like I said, it's a long game, right? In the deals that you're working on. But when you're working with trusted advisors, what do you look for in a trusted advisor besides their industry and their field and things like that for it to be a good working relationship?
Because again, we're looking to a great degree at older business owners who are looking to retire. So a lot of our trusted advisors we connect with are seasoned senior level people.
Got it.
It's an attorney who's been doing it for 30 years also, not somebody who graduated from law school yesterday.
Yep, with an expense account and just recently passed.
Right, because they have that relationship they've created with that business owner themselves over time.
Right.
So they're going to give us the referral that's more trusted, more give us access that we wouldn't have with someone who, and you know, whether it's a financial advisor or an attorney or accountant, if they're just starting out, they're working with the people of their same social economic network.
Yeah, of course.
So we're looking past that.
Right.
So part of it is the senior level, and we belong to organizations that allow us to get to know people. A couple of the organizations that we belong to, for instance, state planning councils, which are attorneys and accountants who work with business owners who are planning for their ultimate estate that they will leave behind.
Interesting.
And so they're guiding these people on what will be the opportunity once they have sold their business.
Right.
Well, we want to get to know the same people so that we can get in front of them when it's time for them, or ahead of that when they're ready to start working on getting the business ready, just like they're working on the trust plan.
And that's the definition of a strategic partner, right?
Yes.
Somebody that you can share clients with that's not competing with what your business is. Where have you found to be, has anybody come to you and has not been a good fit for your company? And I'm saying that because there is such a, like to your point, social economics, they got to be 5 million up. What would you suggest somebody who's not ready for you yet to do to prep before they use you? They're not at the $5 million mark yet. What would you say to those people that need to get to that point?
Interesting. I had a conversation just yesterday
Did you really?
with an individual who I met through a networking group a couple of years back at BNI.
Nice.
And he's 38 years old, runs his own company, and he called me about how does he prepare his business for 10 to 15 years from now when he will be ready to sell, and what does he need to be doing in terms of getting ahead of that. And I my eyes lit up. I was so happy to hear him call because I don't get that many conversations with people thinking ahead.
Right.
And I gave him some advice, and I told him I'd love to coach him over the next number of years and help him. And he was appreciative of that because it takes time to get the business where you need to get the right value. Because you know, in the conversation, he said, "What is my business worth now?" And I gave him an honest answer. It's not worth a lot at this point, but here's how you get it valuable. And you know, he said that's where he's going. He wants to build it to that level and what he needs to be doing.
So is there, so what kind of coaching, so if you could relay that information, what kind of tips were you able to give him and that can be high level, just to keep in mind? Well,
there's a number of things. For instance, I've already said, make the business independent of you. So he's agreed, he's thinking of bringing in a person who will be like the general manager and will do the pricing and other things that he takes on now. So he can step back from some part of that.
Right.
But it will take time to train that person. We talked about diversifying his customer base. He works primarily in the residential marketplace. He said, well, why not go into a commercial side of the business, which is a little bit more longer term, lower margins, but longer term relationships for his clients. We talked about the equipment process of making sure he has the right financial advice to get the right equipment and financing for what he needs to grow the business. And just simple tips. Now, it takes time. Any one of those, you can't do them all at once.
Right.
So he needs to start working on a business plan of where he's going to grow the business. And we talked about if he could get it from $1 million to $10 million over the next 15 years, the business value goes way up.
What organizations are you a part of besides that one with the attorneys and the financial advisors?
I'm a member of the Beacon organization, which is a
Beacon's
networking
great.
organization throughout the Delaware Valley, even in northern New Jersey.
What do you like about them?
Just good people, and there are subgroups that are very interesting. A lot of good topics that we at our meetings. I'm a member of a group called XPX, which is Exit Planning Exchange.
Really?
And the group is all about the exit planning process, and we help each other. We coach each other. There are attorneys and accountants and financial advisors in that group. So it's all networking for me. I belong to a group called the Advisory Board, where there are business owners. It's a peer-to-peer group, so I get to know business owners on the same level I'm at with my own business. And just in general, I do a lot of networking in any kind of.
Where do you go?
Well, I've been to your events.
Oh, I've been to my events. No,
They're great events.
That wasn't a plug for me. That was more. It was more of just because there's a lot of people that come to me and say, "Hey, I'm really looking to meet people of a certain caliber, right?" So and those are typical business owners who are in VP roles, things like that. My advice has been, "Hey, go to the organizations that have panel discussions, that have people that are giving, so that where you're not only getting educated, but you're meeting people that are also like-minded for you."
Yes.
These organizations that you're a part of, you're in that environment and you're connecting with those people. What do you think because you're so seasoned in that way, what do you think has been the biggest challenge that people do while networking today to reach those VPs of X, Y, and Z?
I've spent some time trying to get an understanding of how to network well, and it is not a natural thing. And so to your question, it's making sure that you get around to meet people, get to know them first, and then they can get to know you. If you're interested in what they do or what they want to talk about at that moment, it could be an event that they're involved with. So get them to feel comfortable talking with you. Have your business cards with you so you can make sure they remember you, and the best way to remember is I have that card in my pocket. So it's just make yourself available
and memorable, I think.
Yeah, memorable.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. It's been so fast. It's all done.
Are we done?
We're done now. Can you do me a favor? Can you look into this camera right here and tell people how they can find you?
My name is Paul Visokey, and my company is Stony Hill Advisors. Our website is available at www.stonyhilladvisors.com. Stony is no E in it. Everybody likes to put the E in the Stony. And my office phone number is 215-543-3508.
Please text him at 3 o'clock in the morning with some Uber request. Just kidding. Thank you so much for being here today, Paul.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for watching Connected Success on RVN TV. Stay tuned next week to where we interview power networkers in the greater Philadelphia and South Jersey area. And as always, thank you for tuning in this week, and we'll see you next week.